Today, organisations are facing huge challenges in addressing the heightened ESG expectations. In particular, NGOs, the consumer, and shareholders, investors are really scrutinising what businesses are doing in terms of their ESG impacts, and in particular, their adverse human rights impacts. The obligations that companies are facing in respect to ESG and human rights are now moving from soft voluntary obligations to real hard law and real legal risk. So, for example, for many years, responsible corporates were complying and voluntarily assuming their obligations under the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights. That voluntary assumption is now turning into a mandatory obligation. Even more stark is the growing exposure for corporates in respect to criminal liability. Now, we're seeing this in continental Europe in particular, but in the UK, the Law Commission has proposed a new criminal offence of failing to prevent human rights abuses. And if that comes into force in the next few years, that's likely to dramatically change the compliance burden for corporates. In several important jurisdictions, including the UK, there is a growing trend of investor class action targeting large corporates for alleged and so-called ESG abuses in their supply chain. These actions are being aggressively curated by litigation funders and claimant law firms alike. And there has been a huge reputational impact that this litigation has brought. These legal developments make it increasingly important to understand who your third parties are, what they are doing, and in particular, what human rights impacts they are creating. Our advice is companies have to ensure that their risk assessments in respect to human rights impacts are rigorous, robust, and performed in exactly the same way as you might in respect to financial crime risk. The human and commercial cost of failing to address these issues can be devastating.